My wife demanded a divorce and the house. You can't even afford a decent lawyer to fight me in court. I replied, You're right. She served me papers in court only to see the country's most feared and most expensive divorce. Attorney, sit down next to me. He looked at her and said, He doesn't have to afford me. I'm his older brother. You know that feeling when you're watching a movie and you can see the twist coming from a mile away, but the main character is completely clueless? Yeah. Well, turns out I was that guy. My name is Graham Porter. And until last Tuesday, I genuinely believed my wife, Clarissa, and I still had something worth fighting for. Hell, I thought we were just going through a rough patch. You know, the kind of thing that happens when you've been married for 8 years and life starts throwing curveballs at you faster than you can swing. Honestly, I should have seen it coming. The late nights at the office that stretched longer and longer, the way she'd turn her phone face down whenever I walked into the room, how she suddenly developed this obsession with yoga classes that supposedly ran until 10 at night. But I'm a high school woodworking teacher, not a detective, and I wanted to believe the best in the woman I'd promised to love through thick and thin. That Tuesday evening, she asked me to sit down in our living room, the same space we'd carefully decorated together over the years. Every piece of furniture in there had a story. The leather couch we'd saved up for after my first year teaching. The coffee table I'd built myself, spending weeks getting. The grain just right because I knew she loved how light looked through oak. The bookshelf where our collections mixed. Her romance novels next to my woodworking magazines and Stephen King paperbacks. She had this manila folder in her hands, holding it like it was something precious. For a split second, I thought maybe it was vacation brochures or house renovation ideas, something hopeful, something that meant we were planning a future together. Man, was I wrong. Clarissa slid that folder across the coffee table with the same casual motion you'd use to pass. Someone the salt. No ceremony, no emotion, just pure business. Inside were papers, lots of them, all printed on thick, expensive legal paper that makes everything look official and intimidating. At the top of the first page, in bold letters that might as well have been written in neon, it said, Petition for dissolution of marriage. I'm not going to lie, my heart completely stopped for a second. You know that moment in cartoons when a character gets hit with an anvil and just freezes mid-action? That was me, staring at those papers like they were written in a foreign language. But Clarissa wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. She launched into this whole presentation like she was pitching a business deal to a potential client. She wanted the house. The same house my grandfather had helped me buy with his life savings because he believed in young love and fresh starts. She wanted 70% of our joint savings account, the one we'd been building together for our Sunday dreams. And then, like she was ordering a coffee with extra foam, she casually mentioned she'd also need 5 years of spousal support. 5 years. She said it like it was nothing, like she was asking me to water her plants while she went out of town for the weekend. The whole time she's talking, I'm sitting there trying to process what's happening. This woman, who used to laugh at my terrible dad jokes, who'd steal my hoodies, who cried during every Disney movie we ever watched together, she was dismantling our entire life with the emotional investment of someone reading a grocery list. I've already spoken with my attorney, she said, her voice flat and professional as a customer service rep. Brett Lanson, he's one of the best divorce lawyers in the state. He thinks this is all very reasonable given the circumstances. Circumstances, like our marriage was just a failed business venture that needed to be liquidated. I sat there, probably looking like a deer caught in headlights, trying to find words that made sense. Clarissa, we can work through this. We can try counseling. She cut me off with a wave of her hand, the same gesture she'd used to dismiss a telemarketer. Graham, let's be adults about this. We both know this marriage has run its course. I'm just trying to make the transition as smooth as possible for both of us. Smooth. Like she was talking about switching cell phone carriers. Then came the moment that really knocked the wind out of me. She leaned back in that leather couch we'd bought together, crossed her arms, and looked at me with this expression that was part pity, part condescension, and part something I couldn't quite identify. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Be realistic, Graham," she said, her voice taking on this tone like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "You can't even afford a decent lawyer to fight me on this. You're a teacher. I've seen your paychecks. We both know you don't have the resources to drag this out in court." Those words hit me like a physical blow, not just because of what she was saying, but because of how she was saying it. There was no kindness, no acknowledgement of the years we'd spent building a life together, just cold, calculated assessment of my financial limitations. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in 8 years, I felt like I was seeing a complete stranger. This wasn't the woman who used to make me pancakes shaped like hearts on Sunday mornings. This wasn't the person who held my hand during my dad's funeral and promised we'd get through everything together. This was someone who had clearly been planning this conversation for weeks, maybe months, figuring out exactly how to maximize her advantage while minimizing mine. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it gives you a weird kind of clarity. I sat there for a long moment, feeling something shift inside my chest. Not anger, exactly. Not even hurt. Though there was definitely some of that. It was something calmer than that. Something that felt almost like acceptance. I looked her straight in the eye, and in the steadiest voice I could manage, I said, "You're right." For just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Maybe surprise that I wasn't going to fight or beg. Maybe relief that her carefully planned speech had worked exactly as intended. Maybe even a tiny bit of disappointment that I wasn't going to give her the dramatic reaction she might have been expecting. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd played all her cards perfectly and backed me into a corner where I had no choice but to roll over and accept whatever terms she wanted. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was what I was going to do next. Because sometimes, when you think you've got someone completely figured out, that's exactly when they surprise you.